Venezuelans slammed U.S. President Trump for authorizing CIA operations and floating possible military action. In Caracas, residents call it a game of psycho-terror, and tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela flares as Admiral Halsey resigns in a surprise move, adding uncertainty to Washington's strategy in Latin America. After a phone call, Trump confirms he will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary to discuss the end of war between Russia and Ukraine. In France, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu survives 2 no-confidence votes, but political turmoil continues to rattle Paris and President Emmanuel Macron's government. Restore dignity and hope. Palestine unveils a $67 billion plan to rebuild Gaza, calling it a roadmap for recovery after years of war. In the Philippines, the flood control controversy drags on. DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon denies allegation linking his agency to contractors. Kristel Guangco, Newsline World starts now. Venezuelans in Caracas criticized United States President Donald Trump for authorizing CIA operations in the country and considering ground attacks against alleged drug cartels. This story from Jane Codnita.
Residents gathered around Plaza Bolivar in Caracas voiced outrage over what they called U.S. psycho-terror following President Trump's remarks on possible military actions in Venezuela. Some citizens accused Washington of fabricating threats to justify intervention and destabilize the government of President Nicolas Maduro.
El presidente Trump tiene un juego de psicoterror contra Venezuela, aplicando el psicoterror, que mañana lo van a invadir, que esta noche, que mañana, que pasado. Pero es un psicoterror del presidente Trump contra la moral y la resistencia del pueblo venezolano y su revolución con el presidente Maduro.
Others called for vigilance, warning of potential complications if CIA operations were to take place in the country.
Yo considero que es un boom más de lo que Trump suele ocurrírsele inventar para amedrentar. Pero sí no hay que descuidarse. Tenemos que tener ojo avisor, porque si de verdad la CIA empieza a operar aquí en Venezuela, vamos a tener complicaciones.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has meanwhile appealed for peace with the United States, addressing what he called the people of the United States in a televised message. Tensions between Caracas and Washington have escalated since August, when the U.S. deployed forces to the Caribbean, citing anti-drug trafficking operations that have already resulted in deadly attacks on several vessels.
Venezuela es un territorio de paz. Aquí lo que queremos es la paz. No queremos la guerra, y el premio de guerra se lo pueden dar a Donald Trump.
As tensions intensify between the U.S. and Venezuela, many citizens say they stand united in defending their country against any foreign threat. This has been Jane Codnita, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
In Washington, the gridlock deepens on Capitol Hill after the Senate has once again failed to move forward on a bill that would fund the federal government, leaving the shutdown with no resolution in sight. For the nth time, lawmakers tried and failed to break the impasse. The latest 51 to 45 vote fell short of the 60 votes needed to advance the latest Republican proposal. The deadlock has shuttered parts of the American government for weeks, with hundreds of thousands of federal workers still waiting for their next paycheck. Senate Republican leader John Thune says Democrats are blocking a path forward. But Democratic leader Chuck Schumer argues Republicans haven't shown a willingness to negotiate. The standoff comes as both parties brace for the political fallout and Americans grow increasingly frustrated over the lack of progress. There's no new vote scheduled yet, and this means the shutdown could stretch further. In France, newly reappointed Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu is holding on, at least for now. Lecornu has survived two separate no-confidence votes as political instability continues to shake President Emmanuel Macron's government. Angel Pastor has more on this.
Inside France's National Assembly, a tense day of votes and another test for President Emmanuel Macron's fragile government. Two attempts were made to bring down the government. Neither succeeded. The first motion, brought by the far-left France Unveil or LFI party, fell short with 271 votes, while a second motion by the far-right National Rally gained just 144. National Rally leader Marine Le Pen lashed out at both Macron and Lecornu, calling the situation a pathetic spectacle and slamming the 2026 budget proposal as a black year for French workers. Members of the opposition accused Macron of twisting the constitution and ignoring the public mood, saying France has become ungovernable. But Lecornu pushed back, insisting his government is supported by the people and warning that history will judge these political maneuvers harshly. He also told them not to take the national and social security budget hostage. Just last week, Lecornu briefly resigned only to be reappointed by Macron days later, the fifth prime minister under Macron's presidency in just 2 years. France's fractured parliament remains deeply divided, with no party holding a clear majority, fueling growing calls for new elections. Reporting for Newsline World, Angel Pastor, SMNI News.
As the investigation into the alleged flood control scam heats up, a new controversy has surfaced. In a statement, Ombudsman Kristel Guangco mentioned the name of Senator Bong Go in connection with the projects of the Vizcaya couple. However, the senator immediately denied the allegation. Troy Gomez files this report.
On Thursday morning, Ombudsman Kristel Guangco brought up allegations that the contractor couple, the Vizcayas, were supposedly protecting Senator Bong Go. He said it was possible that CLTG Builders, the construction company owned by the senator's father, had links to irregularities in the flood control projects. In a press conference, Go acknowledged his father's business but firmly denied having any influence over or benefiting from the company's contracts.
Wala pa ako sa mundong ito. May negosyo na po ang pamilya ko. Ang tanong po dyan, nakialam ba ako, binigyan ko ba ng pabor ang aking kamag-anak? Hindi. Nakinabang ba ako sa negosyo nila? Hindi. Because I observed delicadeza.
He added that even before the connection between the Vizcayas and the CLTG Builders had already been made clear during the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearings and that he has nothing to hide.
Doon po, nagkaroon po ako ng interest din bilang isang senador at miyembro po ng Blue Ribbon na kung may pagkukulang, pagkakamali, kung anomalous o substandard, panagutin niyo, sinabi ko doon. Ako mismo ang kahit kamag-anak ko. I'm willing to be the complainant.
But according to Go, some groups seem to be diverting the issues and using his name to cover up those who are truly at fault. He also recalled previous hearings where flood control projects in Ilocos Norte were discussed, along with the names mentioned by the Vizcaya couple, most of whom were lawmakers in the House of Representatives.
Tumbukin niyo po yung dapat tumbukin. Hanapin niyo po yung dapat hanapin. Yun talagang mga totoong buhaya. Yung mastermind talaga. Bakit i-atras ngayon? Ang dami-daming mga kongresista na sila mismo ang congressman talaga na kontraktor.
Go insisted that he should not be the one under investigation, but rather the masterminds behind the systematic irregularities in the flood control projects. He added that if anyone tries to discredit him, it's clearly politically motivated, stemming from his close ties with former President Rodrigo Duterte. For Go, the principle is clear, delicadeza before power. Reporting for Newsline World, Troy Gomez, SMNI News.
No more hungry Filipinos, this is the dream that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. hopes to achieve by the end of his presidency. He mentioned it during his meeting with beneficiaries of the Walang Gutom Refuel Project on Thursday. Kristel Guangco has the story.
On October 16, 2025, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. reaffirmed his administration's commitment to eliminate hunger across the country before the end of his term. Speaking at the Kamustahan event held at the San Andres Sports Complex in Manila, the President assured that the government will continue to strengthen programs that address food insecurity and malnutrition, especially among the poorest families.
Tinanong sa akin, ano ang pangarap ko sa aking termino bilang presidente? Ay, ang sagot ko, sana naman magawa natin na pag-alis ko bilang Pangulo ay wala nang gutom na Pilipino. Kaya po may mga programa tayong ganito. Dahan-dahan po na natutupad po ang pangarap po ng inyong Pangulo, ang pangarap po ng lahat ng Pilipino na wala nang ginugutom na pamilya dito sa atin.
President Marcos Jr. launched the Reducing Food Insecurity and Undernutrition with Electronics Vouchers or Refuel Project, an initiative aimed at expanding the Department of Social Welfare and Development's Walang Gutom program. The Refuel Project aims to expand WGP coverage to 750,000 food-poor households by 2026, more than double its current coverage of 300,000 beneficiaries. Marcos Jr. then expressed gratitude to international partners for their support in implementing the program. One of the key goals of the project is to provide nutritious food to beneficiaries, moving away from the traditional but nutritionally lacking meals of plain rice and canned sardines. Each beneficiary family receives nearly 3,000 pesos worth of monthly food credits through an electronic benefit transfer or EBT card, which can be used to purchase food. President Marcos noted that the system has been simplified through technology and is being integrated with digital platforms such as GCash for easier access. Marcos also highlighted various government feeding programs focused on children, including First 1,000 Days Program, Supplemental Feeding Program, and DEP and Feeding Program. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Kristel Guangco, SMNI News.
Up next, after a phone call, Trump confirms he will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary to discuss the end of the war between Russia and Ukraine. In the Philippines, the flood control controversy drags on. DPWH Secretary Dizon denies allegation linking his agency to contractors. More news when Newsline World returns.
Madalas ka bang napapasobra sa pag-scroll sa phone mo kahit puro masasamang balita ang nakikita mo? Isipin mo ito. Nakahiga ka na sa kama, nagche-check lang ng phone bago matulog. Tapos, hindi mo na malayan, ilang oras ka na palang nagbabasa at nanonood ng mga balita tungkol sa digmaan, sakuna, politika, at lahat ng masasamang nangyayari sa mundo. Nakakaramdam ka na ng kaba at pagod, pero tuloy mo pa rin ang scroll mo. Ang tawag dyan ay doom scrolling. Ito ang habit ng paulit-ulit na pagtingin sa mga negatibo o nakaka-depress na content tulad ng digmaan, krimen o problema sa mundo. Nakaka-stress pero hindi mo pa rin mapigilan. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral ng Texas Tech University, ang sobrang konsumo ng masasamang balita ay nauugnay sa pagtaas ng stress, anxiety at pisikal na sintomas gaya ng pagkapagod at sakit ng ulo. Ayon naman sa Harvard Health, ang doom scrolling ay nagpapataas ng fight or flight hormones tulad ng cortisol at adrenaline na nakakapagpabigat ng isip at katawan. Nakakaapekto ito sa iyong mood, tulog at maging sa mental at physical health mo. At kapag naman puro memes at random na content ang pinapanood mo ng sunod-sunod hanggang sa mawalan ka na ng gana na mag-isip at gumawa ng iba pang gawain, ang tawag naman diyan ay brain rot. Sa Gen Z at tinatawag na internet culture, ang brain rot ay overconsumption o sobrang tagal na panonood ng paulit-ulit, mababaw, magulo o walang saysay na content online. hanggang sa parang manhid na ang utak mo. Kapag nasobrahan, syempre, nakakasama. Nawawalan ka na ng focus, nawawala ang motivation, hirap mag-isip ng malalim, parang lutang o foggy ang utak. Masaya sa simula, pero kapag sobra, napapagod ang isip mo. Nahihirapang mag-concentrate at parang lutang. Mas delikado pa ito sa mga bata dahil ang utak nila ay nasa proseso pa ng pag-develop. Kaya mas malakas ang epekto ng doom scrolling at brain rot sa kanila. Maaaring makaapekto sa pag-aaral, pag-iisip at pakikitungo sa iba. Ang higit sa 4 na oras ng screen time araw-araw sa mga kabataan ay konektado sa 35 to 88% na mas mataas na posibilidad ng depresyon, anxiety at stress. Base ito sa isang malawakang pag-aaral sa Brazil. Kaya, maging balanse. Magpahinga sa screen. Magbasa. Makipagkwentuhan. Magdasal. Maging present lagi. Alagaan ang iyong isipan. Kung anong itinatanim sa isipan mo, yun ang lalago. Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas. Umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubahang sitwasyon. Kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado. 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki. Mahigit 1/4 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon. Ayon sa schedule ng pasyente, ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina, at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
more news, a new round of diplomacy between Russia and the United States is in the works. President Donald Trump says he'll soon meet President Vladimir Putin for talks in Hungary. This comes after a phone call between the two leaders. Franco Baranda reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he'll meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest, signaling a new push for direct U.S.-Russia talks over the war in Ukraine. The White House confirmed the two leaders spoke by phone Thursday, and Trump described the call as very productive in his Truth Social post. Trump also announced that high-level advisors from both sides will meet next week to prepare for the summit, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio leading the U.S. delegation. No date has been set, but Trump said the goal is to make progress toward ending the conflict in Ukraine. Their last meeting took place in Anchorage, Alaska in August, a session that both leaders called constructive, though it ended without major agreements. In Moscow, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov praised the renewed U.S. engagement, saying Washington under Trump is the only Western government trying to understand the roots of the Ukraine crisis. If confirmed, the Budapest meeting would mark the second Trump-Putin summit since Trump returned to office. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Franco Baranda, SMNI News.
President Donald Trump says the United States may hold off on tightening sanctions against Russia just a day after his phone call with President Vladimir Putin. Paul Montibon tells us more.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he isn't ruling out new penalties in Moscow, but hinted that his administration might wait before moving forward. This could mean that Washington may hold off on tightening sanctions against Russia.
I'm not against anything. I'm just saying it may not be perfect timing.
The U.S. Congress is currently weighing a bipartisan bill that would dramatically expand penalties on Moscow, including secondary sanctions on countries that continue trading with Russian oil, gas, and uranium. The measure, introduced by Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal, could impose tariffs of up to 500% on certain imports tied to Russian trade. Trump said he plans to speak with Senate Majority Leader John Thune and House Speaker Mike Johnson before making a final decision, saying his recent call with Putin was productive and that he wants to get peace. To recall, Thune earlier announced that time has come to work on the Russia sanctions bill, but that happened before the phone call between Trump and Putin took place. Still, others like Senator Rand Paul have argued that the proposed bill could hurt the U.S. economy more than Russia's. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montibon, SMNI News.
In other news, the Supreme Court is now asking comments from President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. regarding the petition for a writ of kalikasan filed by several lawmakers and environmentalists due to the government's flood and ghost control projects in flood control. Based on the notice released by the Supreme Court en banc, aside from the President, represented by the Office of the President, the Supreme Court is also requiring a response from the Office of the Senate of the Philippines, represented by Senate President Vicente Tito Soto III. Similarly, the House of Representatives, at the time represented by Martin Romualdez, is also being asked to respond. The Department of Budget and Management, the Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Department of the Interior and Local Government, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, River Basin Control Office, local government units across the country, and contractors who received payments for the government's flood control projects are also required to submit their comments. The respondents are given only 10 days to comment from the date they received the notice of the resolution. Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. asserted that there are political motives behind the attempts to link his name to investigations into the alleged large-scale corruption in the government. President Catarang for the rest of the details.
Amid speculations that he could be implicated in the investigations into alleged large-scale corruption in the government, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. assured that he has nothing to worry about regarding these accusations. The statement came following issues suggesting that he could be linked due to his signing of the national budget, his ties with appointed officials, and his connections with lawmakers such as former House Speaker Martin Romualdez.
I'm confident because I know what we did or did not do.
Marcos explained the role of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, which has been tasked to conduct a thorough investigation into reports, complaints, and allegations against government officials.
And that is their job, and their job is to follow the leads that they receive, and if necessary or if it is justified, that they will now recommend to either the Ombudsman or to the DOJ that cases be filed.
The president further stated that he will not interfere in the investigation process and assured that the ongoing inquiry will remain fair and impartial. He also reiterated that his administration is open to investigations and has nothing to hide regarding the allegations of corruption. However, he took a jab at the opposition, saying they are using the issue to discredit his administration.
Wala naman tayong tinatago, wala tayong malakas. I know that there are several, the opposition would love to bring me into this, to include me in all of this. But that's politics. That is not to do about corruption. That is to do about politics. Gusto nila akong tanggalin. Sige, kaya nila gagawin lahat yung mga gagawin nila.
The president expressed confidence that his administration will be able to prove that these allegations are unfounded.
I'm confident that whatever mud might be slung at the administration, that we will be able to show that these are politically motivated and do not actually have any validation in fact.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Kristel Guangco, SMNI News.
Vice President Sara Duterte called the Marcos administration paranoid after President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. stated that the issues being raised against him are allegedly part of a plan to remove him from office. This report from Jason Rubrico.
Well, I'm confident because I know what we did or did not do. But if we investigate everybody. We follow the evidence, and wherever that leads is not something that we try to direct or influence.
In an interview at Malacanang, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said he is confident in the ongoing investigation of the anomalous flood control projects, even if it reaches his office. Marcos emphasized that the palace has nothing to hide and that attempts to involve him in the issue are merely political.
Wala naman tayong tinatago, wala tayong malakas. I know that there are several, the opposition would love to bring me into this, to include me in all of this. But that's politics.
However, Vice President Sara Duterte questioned the president's excessive confidence, especially since the investigation is not yet complete. She said it is puzzling that the president seems to already know the outcome of the investigation, even though it has not yet concluded.
Sa ganitong ongoing pa yung investigation kuno at inquiry kuno, sobrang magtataka ka bakit confident yung Pangulo na hindi aabot sa Office of the President yung iskandalo at yung korupsyon. So ibig sabihin, siguro alam na niya kung ano yung kalalabasan ng inquiry at ng investigasyon. Kasi wala namang iba sigurong explanation kung bakit napaka-confident mo sa mga mangyayari pa. Wala pa akong nahanap na tao na alam kung ano yung mangyayari bukas. Siya pa lang. Si BBM pa lang.
VP Sara added that President Marcos' involvement in the issue is no longer politically motivated since the campaign is over and he is no longer running for any position.
Hindi na ito politically motivated. Bakit? Hindi naman siya makakatakbo na ulit Hindi na siya politiko. Presidente na siya, and that ends there. Hindi na siya hinahabol ng mga tao, ng taong bayan, dahil politiko siya. Hinahabol siya ng taong bayan dahil wala siyang ginagawa bilang Pangulo. Hinahanap sa kanya yung trabaho niya bilang Pangulo.
Following this, VP Sara also rebutted President Marcos' claim that linking him to corruption issues is allegedly part of a plan to remove him from office.
Sino ba sa ating lahat ang nagsasabi at nagpaplano ng destabilisasyon? Walang nagsasabi na oust Marcos. Ang merong mga grupo na nagsasabi resign. Nagtataka ako sa administrasyon, bakit nila sinasabi na destabilisasyon ang pagpapahayag ng mga tao sa galit nila? Kasi hindi yun destabilisasyon. Yun ay freedom of speech and expression. So kahit man mag-rally ang mga tao araw-araw sa EDSA, hindi destabilisasyon yan. Freedom of speech and expression yan.
The Vice President added that the idea of destabilization comes directly from the palace itself, stemming from fear, unease, and the current administration's extreme insecurity.
Kanino ba nanggagaling yung destabilisasyon na salita? Sa administrasyon. Kasi, duda ko, natatakot sila sa posibleng mangyari sa kanila. At alam naman natin na matagal na talaga silang insecure. Unang-una, insecure. Pangalawa, takot. Pangatlo, paranoia. Kasi ang tao na may bisyo, nagiging paranoid.
Reporting for Newsline World, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
When we come back, tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela flares as Admiral Halsey resigns in a surprise move, adding uncertainty to Washington's strategy in Latin America. And hope, Palestine unveils a $60 billion or $67 billion plan to rebuild Gaza, calling it a roadmap for recovery after years of war. Don't go away, Newsline World will be back.
How to receive God's favor. So, for us, in order to receive the favor of God, we must avoid a holier-than-thou attitude. Importante sa harap ng ating Panginoon na tayo ay may kababaan ng loob na huwag nating tingnan at mapagmataas tayo sa ating mga sarili. Isaiah chapter 57 verse 15. For thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. Bilang mga anak ng Diyos na tunay, upang tayo ay kasihan ng kanyang pabor, kailangan tayo ay hindi lamang mapagpakumbaba, kundi tayo ay mapagpatawad. If you want to seek the favor of God, be forgiving in your heart, so that when you pray and lift up holy hands to heaven, the Lord of heaven will also forgive your trespasses. May pabor ka na sa Diyos pagka ikaw ay dumadalangin na pinatawad mo ang kasalanan ng iba. In order to receive the favor of God, we must be humble. We must be forgiving. And we should not judge. And then, if you want to have favor with God, you must love God and obey God's words at all times. Ang aklat na ito ng kautusan ay huwag mahihiwalay sa iyong bibig kundi iyong pagbubulayan araw at gabi upang iyong masunod na gawin ang ayon sa lahat ng nakasulat dito, sapagkat kung magkagayoy iyong pagiginhawain ang iyong lakad, at kung magkagayoy magtatamo ka ng mabuting kawakasan. Magkakaroon ka ng pabor sa harap ng ating Panginoon. Mahalin ang kanyang mga banal na salita, ipamuhay ang kanyang banal na salita, sundin ang kanyang banal na salita, huwag hihiwalay ang kanyang banal na salita sa ating bibig araw at gabi. Pagbubulayan natin yan araw at gabi. Bago kayo magtrabaho sa umaga, pagkagising ninyo, kumuha muna kayo ng mga salita ng Diyos. Magbasa kayo, mag-devotional kayo. Basahin ang salita ng Diyos. Mahalin ang salita ng Diyos. Huwag ilagay ang Biblia at patungan ng anumang klaseng libro. Kailangan yan ay nasa ibabaw ng lahat ng libro.
Isang pindot lang, pwede kang maka-jackpot. Mukhang masaya at easy money lang. Sa murang halaga, pwede ka na tumaya sa online gambling at e-casino apps. Mayroong sabong, slot machines, mahjong, poker at iba pa. Kailangan mo lang ng smartphone, e-wallet at internet. Pero ang aliw na ito, unti-unting nagiging bitag para sa mga Pilipino. Lalo na kung ang paborito mong artista o influencer ang mukha ng app. Mas madaling makaengganyo, diba? Parang safe naman kasi may kilalang mukha. Pero sa likod ng ngiti, sugal pa rin ang itinutulak. At syempre, mas madali ring itago ang pagkalulong sa bisyong ito. Walang pisikal na kasino o pasugalan, walang kaharap, walang accountability, kaya't mas lumalala ang adiksyon. Dagdag pa rito, maraming online gambling apps at walang regulasyon. Sa likod ng mga makukulay na interface at papremyo, nakatago ang problemang bumabalot ngayon sa bansa, ang pagkalulong ng maraming Pilipino sa online gambling. Pwede maglaro kahit saan, kahit kailan, kahit sino, bata man o matanda, pwedeng malulong. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang pagkakalulong sa online gambling ay nagdudulot ng matinding stress at anxiety, pagkakabaon sa utang, pagkawasak ng pamilya, pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili. At tulad ng ibang bisyo, may mga senyales ito tulad ng hindi makapagpigil kahit walang pera, palihim na tumataya, pagpapabaya sa trabaho, pamilya o sarili. Sa bawat taya, may mga taong tunay na kumikita, mga malalaking negosyante at investors na negosyo ang bisyo ng masa. Para sa kanila, perang pumapasok lang ito. Pero para sa ordinaryong Pilipino, kabuhayan at relasyon ang nauubos. At ang masakit, tila matagal itong nahayaan. Hindi ito naging prioridad ng mga nakaupo sa taas hanggang sa sobrang lumala at halos naapektuhan na ang buong komunidad. Ngayon, sa dami ng nalulung at sa laki ng pinsalang naidulot, sa kapalalong umugong ang mga panukalang batas para higpitan ng online gambling, gaya ng pagbabawal sa paggamit ng e-wallets para tumaya, pagtaas ng minimum bet, mas mahigpit na identity verification, pag-block ng mga illegal na gambling sites, at bawasan o ipagbawal ang mga ads na target ang kabataan. Maaari itong magmukhang laro lang, pero sa katotohanan, isa itong sugal sa kinabukasan. Ang kita na dapat sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan o ipon na uubos sa sugal. At sa mundo ng online gambling, mas madali kang matalo kaysa manalo. Huwag hayaang sugal ang magdikta sa iyong buhay. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
One of the highest-ranking U.S. military officers in Latin America is stepping down, a surprise move that has raised concerns amid escalating tensions between the United States and Venezuela. More on this from Sarah Santos.
United States Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has announced the early retirement of Admiral Alvin Halsey, effective on the 12th of December this year. Halsey, who leads the U.S. Southern Command overseeing operations in Latin America and the Caribbean, is stepping down amid reports of tension over missions in the region. While Hegseth gave no reason, reports suggest Halsey's exit may have been forced ahead of schedule. Senator Jack Reed called the resignation troubling as concerns mount over a possible U.S.-Venezuela confrontation. On X, Halsey expressed gratitude for his 37 years of service but did not address the controversy. The move comes as Washington ramps up its military presence in the Caribbean, deploying jets, warships, and thousands of troops under President Donald Trump's strategy against Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. At least 27 people were reportedly killed in U.S. strikes on suspected drug boats, which the White House defends as actions against narco-terrorist groups. Tensions rose further after Trump confirmed CIA operations inside Venezuela, fueling speculation of plans to oust Maduro. Halsey, one of only 2 black 4-star commanders, is the latest senior officer to step down under Hegseth's leadership. The Pentagon says anti-narcotics operations will now be handled by the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force in North Carolina. Reporting, Sarah Santos, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, a major step toward rebuilding Gaza. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa has announced $67 billion 5-year plan to rebuild Gaza, one of the largest reconstruction efforts in recent history aimed at helping the war-torn territory recover from 2 years of devastating conflict. Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa unveiled this at a high-level meeting in Ramallah. Mustafa presented what he called a unified framework for Gaza's recovery, a massive effort covering housing, infrastructure, and social services. The plan, spanning 5 years and 18 sectors, is part of the Gaza Recovery and Reconstruction Implementation Program developed in coordination with Arab and international partners. Under international supervision, the Palestinian Authority says it will lead the process to restore governance across both Gaza and the West Bank. A reconstruction summit is set for November in Cairo to coordinate international funding. The United Nations says Gaza's destruction left more than 55 million tons of rubble, warning that clearing it safely is the first step toward recovery. Safely removing unexploded ordnance will be one of the biggest challenges ahead. Public Works and Highways Secretary Vince Dizon will investigate the allegation made by Congressman Leandro Leviste that some members of his team or agency are connected to contractors. The secretary also urged the congressman to provide the names of those involved. Margaret Gonzalez files this report.
DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon urged Congressman Leandro Leviste to identify the individuals he was referring to in the DPWH who may have connections with contractors. In a press conference, Leviste revealed that some appointees and members of the DPWH team have links to contractors. Dizon did not take Leviste's revelation negatively, but he emphasized the importance of the congressman providing names and specific details so that the matter can be properly investigated. According to Dizon, he has no undersecretaries who are contractors, but he is prepared to verify the allegations. And if the investigation proves them true, he said he is ready to remove them from their positions.
Wala sa kanilang kontraktor. Yun ang aking pagkakaalam. Pero ako po mismo, dahil sa report na ito, mag-iimbestiga na rin ako on my own about this. But I would really appreciate if Congressman Leviste could give me more specifics, if possible, names, no, and circumstances. And believe me, I will act on it. Nakilala niyo na ako, DOTR pa lang. I will never tolerate it. And immediately, tanggal yan. Baka kasuhan ko pa.
At present, Secretary Dizon has appointed 6 new undersecretaries to the agency, including Ari Perez, who serves as Undersecretary for Operations in charge of convergence projects and technical services. Perez reportedly worked with Dizon before at the Basis Conversion and Development Authority and was also a former president of Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation. Arthur Bisnar, now the Undersecretary for Regional Operations, previously came from the Office of Transportation Security. Meanwhile, Charles Calima Jr., the Undersecretary for Special concerns was formerly with a major private corporation. Ricardo Bernabe III, who now serves as Undersecretary in the Office of the Secretary, previously worked with the National Police Commission. Samuel Torgano serves as the Undersecretary for Legal Services, while Nick Conti, who was appointed as Undersecretary for Planning, is a former head of the Maritime Industry Authority.
Importante sa akin yan. No, and I will look forward to having a conversation with Congressman Leviste on that. No, so very clear. No? Hindi ko papalampasin yan kahit anong...
Meanwhile, Dizon revealed that the agency will also look into the possible connection between CLTG builders and the Discayas following the disclosure made by Ombudsman Boy Rimulya.
Titignan na rin natin ang posibleng mga koneksyon ng Discaya sa CLTG Corporation na sinabi nga ni Ombudsman Boy kahapon, parang may allegations na konektado kay Senator Bong Go.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this is Margaret Gonzalez, SMNI News.
Prosecutor General Anthony Fadulion stated that the Department of Justice case build-up will not be affected even if the Discaya couple decides to stop coordinating with the agency in the investigation of flood control anomalies. Margaret tells us more.
The prosecution admitted that the Department of Justice or DOJ was surprised by the announcement from the camp of the Discaya couple that they would no longer cooperate with the investigation of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure or ICI regarding the anomalies in flood control projects. As for the DOJ, Prosecutor General Anthony Fadulion said that the couple has not yet stated that they will also stop cooperating with the department.
Nabigla kami, pero as far as the department is concerned, wala pa naman pahiwatig na sila ay hindi magpapatuloy na makipag-usap sa amin.
However, regarding the Discaya contractors' application for witness protection at the DOJ, Fadulion emphasized that the Discayas are in no position to make demands or dictate the department's process in selecting who will become a state witness in the anomaly case.
Ako, ang personal na pananaw ko, I don't think they're in a position to demand anything at this time. They're applying for supposedly witness protection coverage, and we have our procedures to determine whether or not they will be qualified or not. It is not for anybody to dictate to us how we will go about doing the evaluation. It is not for anybody to impose any conditions.
The Prosecutor General clarified, however, that they can still file cases even if the Discayas, who are a potential state witnesses, decide to stop cooperating in the DOJ's investigation.
I don't think it will hinder the filing of cases because even as we speak now, we are also looking into evidence where there is no need for a state witness. Yung state witness kasi, kakailanganin mo yan kung talagang yung kaso mo ay nanganganib na hindi magtuloy dahil sa kakulangan ng ebidensya, kakulangan ng direct link. That's the reason why we are probably looking into the statements of all these applicant witnesses. But then again, para sabihin na hindi na magtutuloy dahil hindi sila nakikipag-usap sa amin, ay hindi po mangyayari yun.
Fadulion assured that the Discayas will not be stripped of their protection even if they decide to stop cooperating with the investigation.
Remember, the protection was provided to them as a consequence of the ongoing legislative inquiry sa Senate and sa House. May panganib daw sa buhay nila, so kailangan bigyan mo ng proteksyon dahil sa kung ano't ano man ang mangyari dyan sa mga tao niya, pananagutan pa rin ang pamahalaan yan eh.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this is Margaret Gonzalez, SMNI News.
The Philippines Department of Public Works and Highways will also look into the possible connection between the Discayas and CLTG Builders, the company owned by the father of Senator Bong Go. Sheena Turno tells us more.
The Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, is set to investigate CLTG Builders, the company owned by the father of Senator Bong Go. This comes after a discussion between DPWH Secretary Dizon and Ombudsman Jesus Crispin Rimulya, during which Rimulya recommended that the company linked to the senator should be thoroughly investigated. The move stems from the withdrawal of Sara and Curly Discaya's earlier commitment to cooperate with the ongoing investigation of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, regarding the allegedly anomalous flood control projects.
Today, umpisa na namin ang iimbestiga sa CLTG Corporation. At yung links nito sa Diskaya Company simula 2016. No, dahil ang mga Diskaya mismo ang umamin sa Senate Blue Ribbon na lumaki ang kanilang negosyo simula noong 2016. Titignan natin lahat ng mga proyekto na involve ang Diskaya na may involvement dun sa CLTG corporation na sinasabing konektado kay Senator Bong Go.
Dizon emphasized that no government official will be spared in the upcoming investigation, even those who were friends or colleagues during the previous administration.
That's all immaterial. Whether I worked with someone or not, any allegation of corruption needs to be taken to the end. And that is our job here. Pagka na-identify na natin yan, definitely magkukonduct tayo ng mga inspection. Ang importante ngayon, a-identify natin ano yung mga proyektong yon. Gagawin na natin yun ngayon. Dahil nga lumabas na may possible na pinoprotektahan ng mga Diskaya.
On the part of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, the body is open to inviting Senator Go to attend the Commission's ongoing hearings on the flood control anomaly. When asked if it's possible for the senator to be included in the immigration lookout bulletin orders, here is ICI's response.
The Commission always acts based on evidence. No? So if there's sufficient evidence or information to request for an ILBO, regardless who that person might be, official might be, then we will request for an ILBO.
To recall, Senator Bong Go had earlier denied any involvement in the operation of his father's company. Meanwhile, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure began its asset recovery meeting on Thursday morning together with various government agency officials. More than 10 government agencies participated in the meeting, including the Anti-Money Laundering Council, Bureau of Customs, Bureau of Internal Revenue, Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, and several others. The meeting aimed to plan the steps for recovering the public funds that were stolen from the people. ICI Chairperson and former Supreme Court Justice Andres Reyes Jr. emphasized that it is not enough for those behind the massive corruption in government to be imprisoned.
Justice is not enough. We need restitution. It's us using public funds. They belong to the Filipino people. Money that could have been spent on building schools, hospitals, and road projects was instead burned wantonly on useless luxuries and vices. Let us recover what was stolen.
The ICI, together with the mentioned government agencies, will also form a technical working group. This move aims to strengthen coordination, ensure legal soundness, and enhance the effectiveness of the actions to be taken by the Commission and the government agencies in recovering the people's money.
Composed of representatives among all these agencies who will meet regularly, or at least once a week, to update each other, exchange information on what they have and what have they done so far. In a way, we will be monitoring each other, exchanging ideas, and sharing information which may fast-track the restitution of assets. No?
The ICI further revealed that the assets worth around 5 billion pesos are now under a freeze order issued by the Anti-Money Laundering Council, covering nearly 3,000 bank accounts. In addition, another 5 billion pesos worth of air assets belonging to former Congressman Zaldico are also currently frozen. Meanwhile, around 13 luxury cars owned by Saren Curry Diskaya are in the custody of the Bureau of Customs and are set to be auctioned off following the discovery of irregularities in their documentation. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
Children who grow up and bring the joy, the love, the peace, and compassion to the whole world. We only have one planet. We only have one Earth. And I hope that this new generation of children that we have reached out will become millions and billions and bring peace on Earth. Bring peace to humanity.
Maging ligtas, maging handa. Narito ang ilang paalala kung sakaling tumama ang lindol. Maghanda ng emergency kits na may lamang flashlight, pito, first aid kit, tubig at pagkain. Alamin ang emergency exits sa inyong bahay, paaralan o opisina. Habang lumilindol, magtago sa ilalim ng matibay na lamesa upang maprotektahan ang sarili sa mga nahuhulog na bagay. Lumayo sa mga bintana at mabibigat na gamit na maaaring mahulog. Kung ikaw ay nasa labas, lumayo sa mga gusali, puno o poste na maaaring matumba. Kung ikaw ay nagmamaneho, itabi at ihinto ang sasakyan at lumabas. Pagkatapos ng lindol, gamitin ang hagdan sa paglabas ng gusali at huwag gumamit ng elevator. Maging alerto sa aftershocks at manatili sa open space kung kinakailangan. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa anumang sakuna. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, has assured the public that all airports in Mindanao remain safe and fully operational following the magnitude 6.2 earthquake that jolted Surigao del Norte on Friday morning, October 17th. CAAP released a statement earlier today saying airports under areas 10, 11, and 12 were unaffected by the tremor. Initial inspections revealed no major damage to runways, terminals, control towers, or other key airport structures. Assessment teams were immediately dispatched to check the integrity of facilities and ensure the safety of airport operations. CAAP added that it continues to enforce strict safety protocols and maintain real-time monitoring across all its facilities to guarantee the safety of passengers and personnel as well as the smooth flow of flights. Authorities remind travelers to stay updated through official advisories for any further developments related to flight operations in the region. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police, or PNP, has ordered all its police units nationwide to implement go bags to their personnel amid a series of earthquakes and other calamities striking the country. Paul Montibon tells us more.
The Philippine National Police is rolling out a new emergency preparedness drive requiring every police officer nationwide to have a go bag ready for disasters. The move comes after a string of earthquakes and volcanic activity across the country. Acting PNP Chief Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. has directed all regional units to issue emergency kits containing basic survival items like first aid, supplies, food, water, a flashlight, and communication tools. According to the PNP, initiative aims to ensure that police officers are equipped to respond quickly in times of crisis, both for their own safety and to assist the public. The PNP Public Information Office began distributing emergency go bags to its personnel, with each bag containing essential survival items such as first aid kit, ready-to-eat food, water, flashlight, whistle, and communication tools. The rollout will be done in phases using existing logistics and resources. Nartates also called for an assessment of the total number of kits needed and ways to keep costs manageable. For Government Country, the Philippines, reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montibon, SMNI News.
Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino has accused the United States of pressuring his country's officials to curb the presence of Chinese companies, claiming some were even threatened with visa revocation. Let's find out more from Jomel Santos.
Panamá tiene relación con China.
President Jose Raul Mulino denounced on Thursday that U.S. officials allegedly threatened Panamanian counterparts with visa cancellations if they failed to act against Chinese firms operating in the country. He said the move goes against the spirit of friendship he hopes to maintain with Washington. Mulino added that tensions between the United States and China should not involve Panama, calling on both nations to resolve their disputes responsibly to avoid global repercussions.
De que anda una funcionaria por ahí de la embajada amenazando con quitar visas. Eso no es coherente con una buena relación que yo aspiro a mantener con los Estados Unidos. Ellos son libres de poner y quitar visa al que quieran. Pero no amenazando de que, Gonzalo, si tú no haces esto, te quito la visa.
Mulino emphasized that Panama has a long-standing relationship with China that predates his administration, reflecting even in the country's culture and cuisine. He urged neutrality amid the growing rivalry between Washington and Beijing, stressing that Panama should not be dragged into geopolitical conflicts.
Que tiene una presencia china inobjetable por siglos. Es más, hay un dicho por ahí que a mí me gusta mucho, que el mejor desayuno panameño es el chino. Dim sum. Me gusta mucho porque recoge con la sabiduría popular mucho de lo que vivimos. Y eso tiene que ver con esa presencia longeva en nuestro país. Y son gente que trabaja y ha producido mucho para nuestro país desde muchos frentes. Si hoy tienen un problema coyuntural, es de ellos. Y como dije hace unos tiempos atrás, en pelea de grandes uno no se tiene por qué meter.
Since establishing diplomatic ties with China, Panama has hosted several major infrastructure projects led by Chinese companies, including a cruise port and a new bridge over the Panama Canal. Mulino reaffirmed his commitment to maintaining balanced relations with both powers while protecting Panama's sovereignty amid escalating global tensions. Reporting for Newsline World, Jomo Santos, SMNI News.
It's a name that made history and changed the law. A New Zealander has officially earned a Guinness World Record after the High Court ruled in favor of his 6-page-long name that contains more than 2,000 words. Let's find out more about this with Daniela Polita.
New Zealander Lawrence Watkins has made legal history, winning a high court case that compelled the government to officially recognize his record-breaking 6-page-long name. Watkins' extraordinary achievement has now earned him a Guinness World Record for the world's longest personal name, a unique blend of over 2,253 individual words that take 20 minutes to read aloud. His journey began in 1990 when he worked at a library surrounded by thousands of books. Inspired by the abundance of names he encountered, he decided to create one monumental name that captured his fascination. After proofreading the document, Watkins submitted it to the Auckland District Court, where the registrar accepted it. However, the Registrar General later refused to register it on his driver's license, prompting Watkins to take the matter to the High Court. The court ruled in his favor, making his name legally recognized and setting a new precedent in New Zealand's naming laws. The case led to significant legal reforms. New Zealand now limits personal names to about 70 characters and bans official titles like Lord, King, or Pope. Watkins, however, remains proud of his one-of-a-kind legacy. For everyday use, Watkins still goes by Lawrence Watkins, but his world record, once recognized as the longest Christian name and later updated to the longest personal name, stands as a testament to his creativity and perseverance. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulita, SMNI News.
For our sports update, former NBA MVP Russell Westbrook will suit up for the Sacramento Kings as he enters his 18th season in the league. Meanwhile, defending Champions League title holders Arsenal secured their first win of the new league phase after second-half goals from Beth Mead and Alessia Russo sealed a 2-0 victory over Benfica in Lisbon. Carlo Del Peña reports.
The 36-year-old veteran guard played last season with the Denver Nuggets, where he averaged 13.3 points, 6.1 assists, and 4.9 rebounds in 75 games. Reports say the Kings had been in touch with Westbrook since he became a free agent in June, following Denver's playoff exit against the Oklahoma City Thunder. A 9-time All-Star and the NBA's all-time leader in triple-doubles with 203, Westbrook also topped the scoring charts in 2015 and 2017. Sacramento became his 7th NBA team since being drafted in 2008 by the Seattle Supersonics, which later became the Thunder. In his MVP season in 2016-17, Westbrook averaged 31.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists, becoming the first player since Oscar Robertson in 1962 to average a triple-double across an entire season. Meanwhile, the Gunners bounced back from last week's home defeat to Lyon, finding renewed rhythm in the city where they claimed their European crown last May. Arsenal struggled to create chances early, failing to register a shot on target in the first half as Benfica keeper Daphne van Domselaar denied Diana Gomes' header with a brilliant save. Momentum shifted after the break when Mead opened the scoring in the 57th minute, capitalizing on a defensive mix-up by Gomez before Alessia Russo added a late strike in the 89th to secure all 3 points. Despite the win, manager Renee Sledger's side continues to face pressure, having struggled to replicate last season's form that saw them dethrone Barcelona in the final. Midfielder Mariona Caldente admitted the team still needs improvement, stressing consistency and composure as key to rediscovering their top form. Arsenal now sit 9th in the league phase standings, but head into the international break with back-to-back victories, hoping to build momentum in both European and domestic campaigns. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. Do not let your mind rule you. You have to rule your mind. And as we keep track of the countdown, there's only 69 days left before Christmas. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Kristel Guangco. Thank you for watching.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.